Second thing is about the bow. You need to be loosening your bow at all times. If you're not playing, if you're not actually using your equipment, you should be loosening your bow. Even us who know this already, we could make a mistake and forget to loosen our bow. I never do, okay? But the time that I might forget is when I just put my instrument down in the middle of my practice and I just step away, really quick to do something like get a glass of water. And then some big catastrophe happens, like I get an emergency phone call or, like something's boiling over in the kitchen or burning or, something like that where it just suddenly the whole, issue just blanks. It just leaves your mind. And so I think it's usually best if you're going to walk away from your instrument to just loosen your bow. Sometimes I know I'm coming back in just 5 minutes. I will still loosen my bow. When I'm teaching, and I know it's almost time to, finish the lesson, I'm already find myself loosening my bow as I speak to my student and, wrap up the lesson. I'm already loosening my bow. So it's just a habit that, I'm always in. I don't mind loosening, tightening, loose. I don't mind doing it several times throughout the day. The most important thing is to keep your bow healthy. So if you don't loosen your bow regularly and appropriately, then the bow will warp. So keeping the bow tightened for long periods of time, and in addition to that, introducing heat of some sort. So either you didn't realize it, but there's like sunshine going straight onto your violin case, even though your case is closed. That sunshine is like baking the violin in there. Or you might, set it down in the wintertime indoors and you didn't realize there was a heater in the floor, or there was a heater on the, in the baseboard on the wall, or there was a heater, a vent nearby, or there was a space heater, and you didn't think that it was too close, but it was too close. So just some things to think about. And so if you have a tightened bow already and you forgot to loosen it and then there's heat introduced, then it will almost surely be damaged for good. So the bow will just warp, like it will start to bow out sideways. You always want to have a healthy bow curvature, but it needs to be in the original way that it was made and carved. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I have a number of, bow care and bow topical videos. And so I will go ahead and list them down below. So I encourage you to watch those, and they go into great detail. But I just want to address one more time, you can never have enough reminders that you need to be loosening your bow very, very often whenever you're not playing. And just get in the habit, right? Then when you take your violin out to practice, you have to, of course, tighten it. And also the amount of tension is important. A lot of people say you should be able to put a pencil between the horsehair and the stick. I don't really agree with that, but if that's a good guide for you, then you can use it. Reason I don't agree with that is because the tension is based on the strength of the wood. So if you have a bow that is like a high density bow and it's super strong, then you actually don't have to tighten it as much as if you had a bow that maybe is a lesser quality, right? And then so the wood is softer. And so it's like more easily malleable, if that makes sense. So you then would need to tighten it a bit more. So every bow's different. Every bow has, different weights, different, balance points, different everything. And so you would need to, what I do is like the springy test. I'm pretty sure I have this in another video as well. So I do, again, if you're not sure, then go and watch my other, bow videos and bow care videos. but it has to have the right feel. Okay. And if you can tell by the way it feels, if it's tight enough, then typically the sound also follows, right? So if it's the right amount of feel, you have enough resistance, but enough bounce still, you don't want it to be rock hard, then the sound will be correct. If you have a very tight bow, then the sound is going to be, harsher, and it's not going to have as much, like sweetness and flexibility and things. So the amount of tension you put, like how many times you twist the screw of the bow, it matters very much. And if you ever get your bow rehaired, then you have to kind of start fresh again from scratch. So because the horse hairs and everything, it's all different. It's cut differently. It's measured differently. It's kind of layered differently. So it depends on the luthier. So the third topic is rosining your bow. Okay, so I have two types of students. I have three types of students. Okay, I have more than three types of students. We'll just say three types of students. I have the student who rosins pretty well, right? So they rosin in the right increments, right? They put the right amount of rosin. But then I have the student who almost never rosins their bow, and it's the bow is so without rosin that I can hear it through the Skype. Okay, even on long distance calls, I can hear they don't have enough rosin on their bow. I'm not even kidding. I literally can hear it. And the other student is the one who rosins too much. And every time you see them at lesson, there's this white blanket of rosin dust, like completely coating their violin. And I have to tell them every single week, wipe your violin, wipe your violin. They say they did. And then it just keeps, coming back. So that is way too much rosin. If you don't have enough rosin on your bow, then it's very difficult to do certain techniques. And you're, again, conditioning your ear to hear this kind of like thin sound. And also, if you are trying to play like a soft and like a slow bow, like a long note where you have to say bow and it's soft, you're gonna have trouble making that speak. So there's a lot more to this, but I would just want to keep it as simple as possible today. That the not having enough rosin on your bow is very detrimental as well. So you just want to have a decent amount, and you want to do it regularly. So what is the correct frequency of rosining your bow? Difficult question to answer. For me, you can imagine I play, pretty strong compared to the average student. I play pretty aggressively. And the repertoire I'm playing, right, is a lot more demanding, right? So you can imagine how many times my bow goes back and forth on the string, right? And all the friction and everything. Each time the bow passes back and forth, it's, the rosin dust is like kind of leaving the horsehair. And so you have to think about, how much rosin is actually in the horsehairs to begin with. How vigorously are you playing, right? How long are you practicing for? So for me, generally, when I was playing, there were days when I was getting my degree, I was playing my violin for about 12 hours a day sometimes. That's excessive for a violinist, but I had like this rehearsal and had that rehearsal, and each rehearsal is like easily 2 hours or 3 hours long. I had my personal practice, then I had some teaching, so it all added up. And so depending on how vigorously I was playing, I might need to rosin my bow every 2 hours. If I'm practicing solo repertoire, I'm getting ready for a concert and my repertoire is pretty demanding, that rosin is going to get used up pretty easily, like within 2 hours. If I'm not playing that vigorously, then it will last longer. And of course, it depends on how much did you start out with. So I don't like to over rosin my bow in the beginning. And if I found I did by accident, I just play, like several long bows, and I try to get rid of, some of the excess rosin. And I always wipe my rosin, off with my rosin cloth within the first, few minutes if I put a lot of rosin on, because a lot of that excess will come out in the beginning. And then, I'll wipe it again at the end, of my practice. But that amount of rosin is much less than the first few minutes. And so you just have to know, by feeling. I can tell by the way my bow feels, and like I'm trying to do a certain technique, and how does the bow respond, and also how does it sound. So all these things are cues, telling me if I have the proper amount of rosin on my bow or not. So it really depends. Now I have seen, I just couldn't believe it, certain people on YouTube saying that you only rosin once every 2 weeks. And I've had a couple of my students come back and ask me questions sometimes, and the questions they ask me are shocking, like this one, are you supposed to rosin your bow every 2 weeks? That is way, 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 way too far in between. So if you're practicing 1 hour per day, then you might want to rosin lightly every day, or every other day. If you're practicing like half an hour per day, then you might want to rosin your bow, every few days. But of course, it always depends on how much you're rosining. If you tend to rosin a lot, then you don't have to rosin so often, right? But if you rosin just a little bit, like and then done, then you're going to need to rosin a lot, okay? Because that's not enough if you just pass the rosin through a few times. So, I always, if you're a teacher, I recommend that you watch your student rosin their own bow. Just every once in a while say, okay, I can hear you don't have enough rosin on your bow. Go rosin your bow right now. You might feel like it's a waste of time during lesson, but I promise you it's not. Just go have them rosin the bow right in front of you. And then, like, even though I've shown my students over and over, they still don't rosin their bow to my satisfaction. It sounds terrible, right? So I usually have to remind them about, one thing or another, just like, some tiny details about what they could do better, with their rosining technique. And so it's good to just periodically just, watch your students, see how they're rosining their bow. Another quick pet peeve of mine is when they just go and then they're done. You've got to get the rosin down to the bottom and to the top. So make sure the frog is well rosined and the tip is well rosined. Again, if you want to hear the detailed version, it's really important. So please do go ahead and watch my other more detailed videos. So hope that that helps. Couple of random topics. And anyway, hope to see you in my next one. You take care.